Sounds like it's coming from out there. It's out there, isn't it?
That's something else, yeah. Describe in the most vivid detail that you possibly can what your house was like when you were a kid.
House I grew up in was a 3-story brick house. The brick walls were over a foot thick, even the inner walls, and they were all made of brick themselves. And we had a full basement and 2 stories, and then a full attic, which was livable, big enough to be livable. And we used to climb out. We had a porch that was about 3 feet. The roof of it was about 3 feet beneath the middle window in the house, and we used to climb out on top of that roof and play on that a lot. And I used to be sure that if I put enough scarves between my body and my arms, I could fly off of that roof when I was about 7 years old. I never tried it, and it's probably a good thing I didn't. What
are
else?
like some of your favorite memories from high school?
High school. Oh, probably the most fun was the school bus, because our ride to school was about an hour. And so that was the biggest part of the socialization of the day, because we had short sessions. We only had half-day sessions, so we only had a half an hour for lunch and 2 15-minute breaks. So the school was where we did all of our socializing, and the biggest thing with me was I was always running late, which I still do, and lots of mornings, even in the middle of winter when it would be 0 out because we were leaving at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'd run out holding all my clothes on because I hadn't had time to button up or zip up. And all the girls would stand around me and open up their coats so that I could finish dressing on the school bus.
That was nice of them.
And it all started. The first girl did it, and then all the other girls that were on the school bus chimed in, and they'd have me get dressed about once a week.
Bit of collaboration effort there.
Yeah.
What did you like about living in Ohio?
I think it wasn't Ohio as much as living on the farm and the freedom. You could go out in the morning and no one, after you were 7 or 8, you could leave in the morning and come back at dinner time, and no one would worry about you or go looking for you or think about where you were. And I would just wander around, and about a half a mile from our house was catty cornered across our fields was a road that had a big tile underneath it, where there was a little creek that was pretty dried up. So I'd go sit under the road and just wait, hope that a car would go over my head, and just to have that experience. But that was just my place. That was my quiet place that I always felt safe and alone, where nobody would bother me.
Underneath that bridge?
In that tile.
That overhang?
Mm-hmm. And that was when I was little. And then just being able to, everybody in the family could just leave in the morning and be gone for the day, and it was just so relaxed and laid back because there were just not worries back then.
Did you not lock your doors, and what did you feel like it was
we did
a safer
lock our doors.
time?
Yeah, we did lock our doors because about a mile and a half down the road was what we called it the prison farm. I don't know what it really was. It might have been the prison farm, but prisoners would escape from there, and I think we had 3 instances where prisoners who escaped hid in our hay mile.
In your property?
In our barn up.
In your barn?
Yeah, in our barn.
Okay, this is something I didn't know about then. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Daddy would say, or Mom would, one of them would say, I think there's somebody living in our barn tonight. And we would just make sure that everybody stayed in till they got their sleep and took off, and they'd usually get caught pretty quickly after that. But we couldn't call anybody because it would be dark by the time they got in there. It was too late to call and tell anybody they were there. So first thing the next day we would say they spent the night in our barn.
That's nuts that it happened 3 different times.
Yeah, it happened often. Often enough.
What the heck?
So we did lock our doors at nights. But we did have, a lot of people in the family, so they'd be walking into quite a mess if they tried to. And we had shotguns and rifles.
Not too many, just 11 siblings.
Yeah. But we weren't all there at the same time. That's why I didn't say 11. Because the oldest ones were gone before the youngest ones were born.
What was the age difference between the youngest and oldest? So
Your
like
mom?
Mike and...
Your mom just figured this out yesterday, 25 years.
That is a big gap.
Mm-hmm.
25 years of difference.
There were 8 years between my younger brother and the twins. So there was a big gap there.
Yeah, she got 2 of them done at once.
Yeah,
So that it wasn't 11 pregnancies.
One less pregnancy than she might have had.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
efficient.
What else do you want to know?
What was your first job?
First job was in London. It was 6 miles away. And it was a little, I don't even know what kind of store it was. But I was behind the counter. I watched the counter, and there were 2 other men who owned the store who worked there. But they worked in the back, and I don't know what they did, really. I wasn't smart enough at 17 to pay any attention. And my job that I did well and was proud of was people would come in needing paint to match their trucks and their cars where they'd scrape them. And I could eyeball the paint and match their paint color better.
Nice.
They said better than anybody else ever had when I was 17. Because,
Well, you're an artist, so you have an eye for
yeah, I must have had an eye. And
colors.
I guess acrylic paint dries darker. So I guess it wasn't acrylic paint because it must have dried the same color. Because you can't do that with acrylics because it dries a different color. And they were always very pleased. Nobody ever came back. Nobody ever complained. And I just mix it up. I probably couldn't do it now, but back then it gave. And
It was like second nature because you were being paid to, and that was like your main focus when you clocked in. All you had to do that day is just make sure.
Yeah, and stand by the counter and tell people where my bosses were and what was going on. And then I made keys too.
Yeah, and work the register, which is fun.
And work the register and just talk to the customers. I loved it. It was just, I was right out of school, so it was the same thing as a summer job. But I had graduated from high school, so it was really my first job out of high school too.
And so you had some more jobs after that, and then you ended up owning the video
store
with Mom. Did Mom co-own that, or did she work for you?
She just worked.
Gotcha. I figured that was...
She was only 18 or 19 when I bought it. And Frankie worked there too. He came home he went to school at Davis and came home on the weekends, and we worked the weekends, almost every weekend. And he would bring a friend or two that would work.
Nice.
It was a fun experience too.
How did that come about? What idea kind of like, how did that fall into place?
The money that Charlie left me, I wanted to make money with that money. And so that was one of the businesses I bought with it.
Yeah.
And it was just there. It was for sale. And so it was not a lot of money to buy it. So I bought it. And we did well with it until Blockbusters moved in. And then they took all of our business. And so we just walked away from it.
Well, joke's on Blockbuster. Netflix took their business. So.
True. I was kind of tickled when that happened.
That is pretty good.
I do remember things.
All those years later. Serves you right for running me out of business. So you watch the kids, the twins, who are 5 now. Like how many days out of the week?
Every other day.
Every other day.
In the evenings.
When you walk through the front door and you see their little faces, how do you feel?
Yeah, a thrill goes through me that I can't explain. There's just so much love, especially since the minute they hear me on the steps, Memo's here, and I just feel so loved, and they will not greet me without a big hug and saying, I love you, Memo. So it's a really wonderful feeling. And that feeling stays with me the whole time I'm there. Just like it did when you were little and I'd come and visit you and chase you all over the house when you were 2 years old.
What are your favorite things to do with the cousins?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I don't know if there's I think maybe when they're settling down right before bedtime, they watch TV a little bit, and they're one on each side in my arms. And one, I got my arm around each one of them, and they're snuggling in close. I think that's my favorite part of watching them. Every once in a while, they'll say something. Little Frankie, if I'm there for the bath, then I'm the one that has to be in there with him and keep him. And he just laughs his head off about everything. And he always has to take me in when he has to go to the bathroom too. And he says, Mama, I want to tell you, I have something I have to tell you. And then he just tells me this story, and he talks about his baby, and he talks about his grandma, not his mama. And he tells me some crazy story. And I just sit there and try hard not to laugh the whole time, but I have this little snicker on my face where my mouth is trying hard not to go into a smile because I want to just crack up at him.
Yeah. If you could offer any advice to the cousins for when they're like my age, like 19 or maybe like 25, like young adults, what would that be?
I think my high school teacher said something to me that stuck with me. I think I was a junior. And he said, everyone at your age goes around worrying about what everyone is thinking about them. Mm-hmm. And what they don't realize, they're so busy worrying about what everyone is thinking about them that they're not worrying about you. And that helped me get out of my shyness and out of my self-consciousness, because I thought they're not worried about me, they're worried about what everybody's thinking about them. I loved the teacher, so I trusted that he knew what he was talking about. So I would say, don't worry about what anybody else is thinking about you, because everybody else is too worried about themselves. Just do your thing. And I think follow your heart, and don't ever give up. And don't do like me and wait until you're my age to finally follow your dream. If you know what your dream is, go for it whenever you realize what it is. And don't forget that it's never too late to change. If you do something, and don't think you have to find what you're going to do the rest of your life, because you live a long time, and you can do 10 different things if you decide to in your lifetime. You can totally change what you're doing over and over and over again, because by the time you guys are my age, you'll be living till you're 90. And you'll be busy and active probably till you're 90. So you've got years and years and years and years to make mistakes or change your mind or do different things.